Welcome back to the channel. We're once again working on our 2017 GMC Terrain Denali. Now the last time we got all of our parts off of our parts car. Now it's time to put them all on our new Terrain. Let's get started. Before we can start tearing out our center posts, there's still some parts we need to take off that we didn't get last time. We're going to pull this roof rack off, or at least the side rails. You got to pay extra if you want the crossbars. The little chrome piece, which it's satin on the Denalis, just pops straight up. And then there's 4 bolts inside, 4 nuts actually. There's studs that go through the roof skin. Once you get those off, you can kind of peel it off, and there's nothing holding it on except dirt, which probably does more than the nuts. There's a little tab you can press, slide the back piece out, so you don't have to try to get this front piece out with it. You don't want to pry on the roof edges because they will dent, and that in turn angers the bodywork gnomes, so just don't do it. Use a long pry bar from the back and pry against the bottom of that valley where if you put any dents in it, nobody will know, it won't happen. And now we can start pulling our headliner down. Unbolt the grab handles. Sorry it's kind of dark in there, but I fix cars. I'm not much of a cameraman. When I set up the camera, it was nice and bright, but when I got in the car, it kind of darkened up. So you'll just have to live with it. Pull our rearview mirror off of here. Disconnect our camera. Then we'll unbolt our sun visors. They'll stay in the headliner. They're going with the headliner. But the screws that go through them actually hold the headliner up. We'll unbolt the clip for the headliner. Then we'll do the driver's side. Open little door for the clip. Now we can disconnect the wires on our A-pillar. And we'll disconnect our antennas. We'll tuck all these up inside the sun visor. It holds them out of the way so that when we're taking the headliner out, they're not getting snagged on everything. So we'll just pinch them up there. Then we'll unplug the harness and the C-pillar. D-pillar, I guess. We'll release the tabs so that we can reuse that little clip. There's no sun visor back here to stuff this in, so we're just going to have to let it get snagged on everything. And you can be sure it will. We'll back on the D-pillar on the driver's side. We'll disconnect the washer line. And we'll head up to the front. Disconnect the washer line up there. It's the same washer line, just disconnects at each end. We'll stuff that up above the sun visor so it's not getting snagged on everything. Got our cargo hooks in the back. We'll unbolt those. And we'll pull it down a little bit so we can disconnect our antennas. One antenna, 2 plugs. I'll pull our overhead console down. We'll pull the magnets off and our headliner is ready to come out. Not going in the pile just yet. We're going to need the wiring harness off of it and 1 speaker. Scott's Terrain Emporium had a different year and one with fewer options. So there's a slight difference. We have enough that we can make it work. Now we can unbolt what's left of our airbags. Couple clips in there. Pop those out. Squeeze the tabs in on both sides. There's actually holes in them. Just stick a pick in there and push it towards the center and they pop out. And we'll just unbolt them the rest of the way back. Boy, it's dark in here. And now that we have everything out of our way, we'll start getting our pillar out. We're going to drill our spot welds out. We'll use the flat tip drill bit up here so we don't drill through the panel underneath. We just want to get through the outer panel that we're taking off. Down in the bottom here, we're saving the panel that's on the outside, so we're going to drill all the way through. That'll leave us holes to weld up to the new one. Now we'll drill our 5/16 holes, and then we'll pull our 2 bolts out that are holding it together. Now on this side, we'll grind these spot welds off. And we'll break out the reciprocating saw, hack this out of here. It's easier to work with smaller pieces, so we're going to take the bulk of it out. Finally shake it. And toss it in the pile. And that's what's in that pillar. There's an outer panel, there's the B pillar, and then there's an inner piece. All the other pieces are part of the actual B pillar that we're changing. Could it be sectioned? Technically, yes. Will it be as strong? Absolutely not. So we're doing it the right way, according to the repair procedure. But I don't want to take the roof skin off of this, so I'm going to try a different method. We'll see how it works. If it works, it's going to be my new method. So we're going to cut our outer panel here, a little bit wider than where that inner piece ends. Then we're going to cut the top of the valley here, instead of taking the piece off where it goes underneath the roof skin. Hopefully you'll understand the method to my madness in a minute. This outer panel is only to make it look pretty. It's not actually structural, so you can pretty much put it in anywhere. Pop our spot welds out of here. Work our way across. Of course, I'm using the wrong hammer. Would you expect anything different? And we missed a corner. We'll just cut that out. Now throwing this in the pile, we're going to need it for a template. So now we can grind all our spot welds to get this B pillar out of here. Quite a few of them in there. They want to make sure it wasn't going anywhere. Before we take it out, we're going to scribe lines so that we can line up our new B pillar where our old one was. If it gets us close, it's not exact. Every car is different. So we'll grab our favorite tool, break these spot welds loose. It's pretty thick stuff, so hitting it with the air chisel, it kind of pops right off. And we'll just hit it right in this little seam. The vibration should shake it loose. We don't actually have to get the scraper in there. In the pile. Now we can clean up all of our spot welds. So we're ready to weld our new piece on. I'll knock our inner piece off of here. Smash it a couple times until it submits. And toss it in a pile. Grind our spot welds down. And now we'll grind the paint off of our bottom ones, both sides. So we're ready to weld up down there. We want to get all our contaminants out of the welds so we get some nice good welds. Now we're going to prep our B pillar to go in. Same way, cleaning the paint off both sides of any holes that we drilled and cleaning off anywhere we're going to weld to. Flip it over, do the other side. It's a little tedious, but if you do this, it makes your welding go a lot better. Like, you do get a lot of questions. Do you have trouble welding through weld through primer? It's not the easiest, but if you take this time to make sure that everything under the weld through primer is nice and clean, you will get some good welds. Now we're going to throw our weld through primer on there. It's the only kind of painting I'm allowed to do with a spray can. Painting gnomes won't let me paint cars anymore. We got our masking system. I would call it custom, but it seems to be the preferred masking system of lazy technicians. Probably because it's simple, and there's always an abundance of cardboard. And it works. Prep our bottom. We do have our etching primer on all the rest of the spots that we're going to cover up so they won't rust. Now we're going to slide that inner piece inside that roof rail and slide the outer piece over the top. And if we're lucky, we'll avoid losing a finger when it finally slides together. It's a little bit of a struggle, but it's definitely easier than separating that inner piece from the B-pillar. And it's in there. Hopefully not coming out. We'll clamp it up. Put our bolts in the bottom. So just to make sure our measurements are right, we're going to check them since we have them. Everything should line up. I did take off all the clamps after putting some self-tapping screws in the pillars to hold everything in place. I'm going to throw our door on here just to check it. Even though the outer panel is missing, it'll still get our gaps front to back. Hopefully the back door will be in just a slight bit more than the front door, and if it is, that will be the difference between having that panel on and having it off. So our front door gap is still okay on our fender. The door gaps are okay between the two doors. The door is in just a tiny bit. And our rear gap is just fine as well. Tells me that our B-pillar is in the right spot. So we're going to unbolt it. Set this door off to the side. I could have done it with measurements, but I always like to check the parts because it's better to do this now than explain to the painter why he needs to repaint everything he just got done doing, because you had to adjust something after it was all done. Our pieces are almost exactly where they were. You can see the scribed lines. Some are a little bit higher, some are a bit lower, some are further forward, some are further back. It's because each panel is in a different place on each car. So your scribed lines will get you close, but not always exact. Don't be concerned if they're not perfect. As long as your measurements are and your doors fit, your gaps are right, you're good. Actually, if the gaps are right, it might even be wrong, because most cars from the factory these days have horrible gaps. Don't tell consumers that. They think the manufacturer can do no wrong. So now we're ready to start welding it all up. Now we'll take that piece that we cut off the top, we'll overlay it on our new piece, then we're just going to scribe the lines at the ends, and we'll trim it off. It's easier than trying to measure it. Only takes a second to clamp it up here. And now we'll cut the ends off. We'll save these ends that we cut off because those aren't going to end up being our backings. Doesn't this guy ever wear gloves? So we trimmed our two pieces off. Now we're gonna trim the part that would normally go underneath our roof skin. If you remember, we cut the other side at the top of the channel. We're gonna cut this one at the bottom of the channel. So it's gonna overlap. Then we're going to take the piece that's already on the car and we're gonna bend it in slightly, set this one down over it, and we'll weld right to it. So the other one will become a backing. Much easier than trying to drill all those spot welds out and slide it out from under the roof, because not all of the spot welds in there go all the way through the roof skin, so you do have to try to find them. And if you don't get them perfectly centered, you end up tearing up the roof skin. So we'll just have a seam across the top here, and nobody will ever know. At least, I hope not. This is the first time I've actually tried this method. To pull the roof skin off, you'd have to pull the windshield out, you'd have to pull the lift gate off, you'd have to drill all the spot welds out, and take the roof skin off. They can be saved. I've done it a few times, but it does take a lot of work. So this is quite a bit less work. If it works, this will be my new method. If it doesn't work, we're going to figure out what went wrong, and it'll still be my new method. It never hurts to try new methods. It's how I have found many ways to be more efficient at rebuilding and come up with a better product in the end. I'll just trim off any burrs at the end. I'm going to bend the little tab over here. That way our new piece will slide right down on it. I'm not going to be able to weld that whole thing up at one time. We'll weld a little spot here and there. Move all around, keep it nice and cool. We don't want to warp anything. We'll slide our piece over the top. Just kind of hooks in there. We'll line it up. Just trying to make sure everything fits. We haven't put our backings in. This isn't the last time we're going to put it on. It's looking good. We're going to knock our piece off the bottom here. And we'll put that other piece up one more time. Get it fitting where we want it. It is overlapping the other panels. We'll clamp it up. And now we're gonna cut it. Instead of scribing everything, we're just gonna cut through both panels. That'll leave me a seam that's just as wide as the grinding disc. That will actually be where I weld through. I'll have backings on there. They aren't supposed to butt up against each other. There is supposed to be a seam in the center for you to weld. So we're actually cutting through both panels at the same time. So there's no need to transfer our measurements. Pull our piece off of here. And we'll trim what we didn't get all the way through with the grinder that time. A couple spot welds we left. We'll knock those out of there. Get our breaker in here. And we'll grind the spot welds out of the front. We did prime our B pillar, as you can see. Since we're going to cover it up and never see it again, I want to make sure it's not going to rust in there. We'll put the foam back in before we put this outer panel on, at least this layer. The foam that's inside the pillar we can do after we're all done, because there is an opening we can get to. Now we'll prep all of our welds for this outer panel to go on. Clean these edges. And just clean up our spot welds at the top. And now we can slide our backings in there. I grind all the paint off of them and then cover them with weld-through primer. Then the holes that are in there, we just slide it in and weld up the holes. That holds our backing in place. Put our backing in the back here. Snug fit. That's the way you want it. Put our little clamps on there. Vice grips are hard to get in there. Those clamps are available in my Amazon store if you want to check them out. They're pretty handy. I'll weld up our backing and also our breaker. Breaker was just holding it out so that I could get it nice and tight in there. Tap the backing in on the bottom here. I could have put the panel over the other panel and just welded it up, but then your panels are different thicknesses and it does make a difference here because it is an outer panel. So this way it fits flush and it's nice and flat. Nobody probably would have noticed if I did it the other way, but I would have known and it bothered me. We'll slide our last backing in up in the front here, and then we're going to go find something to do to procrastinate putting in this outer panel. Not sure why, I guess I just have commitment issues. Maybe we'll go roam the shop with the gnome. Put our weld-through primer on. Put the primer on our skin that we're putting on. And we're ready to put it on the car. We did put our foam in. So this better be the last time we're putting it up or we're going to have a mess. Slide it over our little tab in the back. And then we'll push it in, clamp it up. We got, I think, 30 minutes before the foam is no longer workable. We'll put the door hinge bolts on. That'll hold our panel in. And then we'll clamp it up, start welding. Bounce all over the place. Now we're gonna throw our doors on there. Make sure they're still in the right spot. Really hope they are. And we need to get them out of the way so we can move the car. Move the door around, line it up. Pretty much goes back in the same paint marks. So that's it for today. We got our doors up here. Everything's all welded up. The grinding gnome even came and ground some of those welds down. So we have to wait for the bodywork gnome to do his job, then we can move on to painting it. We don't have to edge out the inside of the doors because, well, Scott's Terrain Emporium had the right color in stock. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.